So it looks like Israel's trying to de-escalate by escalating in Lebanon. As I said in the pager video, the idea behind it is escalation dominance. And the problem with this is Lebanon has continued to rocket Israel since October 8th after the October 7th attacks. I wish Lebanon would just try to take some sort of peace negotiation with Israel and allow the Israelis to actually return back to the north of Israel. But the problem with the Middle East is no one wants to do diplomacy, it seems like. If Lebanon would have stopped rocketing Israel, and people would argue that, oh, these rockets aren't very effective, they don't get through Iron Dome. Tell you what, if Lebanon would stop rocketing Israel, Israel wouldn't be bombing Lebanon. Hezbollah's justification for it is they're doing it in solidarity with the people of Gaza. Do I think that's true? Yes and no. The part that makes me think it's true is when we had that first temporary ceasefire deal, they weren't rocketing Israel during that period, but then they just restarted rocketing Israel. They didn't have to do that. And what Israel's trying to do is restore some sort of deterrence capacity against Lebanon. And the problem with playing this game is Lebanon has a very healthy stockpile of missiles, and Israel is a nuclear armed power. But I had to think about this from an American perspective too. Say if Mexico was shooting missiles at the United States and people had to be evacuated in Texas and just have the reassurance, don't worry, these rockets won't get through. I don't think the United States would put up with that either. Again, my personal perspective from this is I hope Israel and Hamas can actually agree to the temporary peace negotiation, because Hamas wanted it to end the war. Israel said no to that, so they said, okay, fine, we won't end the war. And we can actually get some of these hostages out who are still alive. But unfortunately, the United States can only pressure one side, really. And that's Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu knows if he accepts a ceasefire proposal, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich will leave the government, new elections will be called, and that'll probably be the end of Benjamin Netanyahu. Also, he has corruption charges when he leaves at the end of his term. I would say that's a pretty powerful incentive to not de-escalate and take a ceasefire proposal. And what's annoying is the complete absence of US leadership. Joe Biden has a lot of power here, and he can actually pressure the Israelis to actually take this ceasefire negotiation. But apparently the US government is not willing to leverage weapon sales to the state of Israel. And now I have to ask this. People are like, oh, if Donald Trump gets in there, he's going to be even worse. This is pretty bad, guys. I could very much see it if Donald Trump gets in there and Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't listen to Donald Trump. He's like, okay, I actually have some balls, and I'm going to make you listen to the United States. People would say that's just a pipe dream, but Kamala Harris has shown that she has no plans on actually changing policy. I do have some evidence to think like this because the US security establishment was pressuring Trump to bomb Iran, and he told him to fuck off. But I'll say this, if there's an actual war with Iran, no US service member should be sent over to fight for Israel. If they want to go after Lebanon, that's their business. But no American should die for this. I will give Israel some credit. They're trying to warn the civilians in Lebanon to evacuate. And then I had to think, what would happen if we had a president who wasn't a shell of his former self? Imagine President Obama as president, and this is all going down. I think President Obama would actually pressure the Israeli government. My evidence for this is he actually allowed a UN security resolution to go past condemning the settlements in the West Bank. And he also got Iran to agree to a nuclear arms treaty, which Israel absolutely didn't want. And I also had to speak on this. Former head of the CIA, Leon Panetta, came out and said what Israel did with the pager attack is terrorism. And I think we shouldn't normalize going into people's supply chains and actually planting explosives on them, allegedly by the Israelis. Because other countries see this, and it could be our bad behavior enables worse behavior from the most terrible and least responsible regimes. And my outlook at the Middle East at this point is just everyone wants to have the final say in any time there's a conflict. So is Lebanon actually going to try to de-escalate from this? I'll say this whole situation has just become scary.